Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Ramon Vega to discuss his illustrious Celtic career. Ramon, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Oh, very well. I hope you're well too.
Yeah, under the circumstances, it's great to tie in with the ex-Celts and have a wee chat about the good old days, but hopefully we can also talk about where Celtic are just now. Ramon, do you get a chance to keep up with the developments at the club?
Oh, very much. I'm very much, obviously Celtic never is going to be forgotten, especially personally, because I got a very good experience with Celtic and also the supporters are fantastic. Even was short, but very, very intense and sweet in the same time. So it's never going to be forgotten, and that's why I'm very having a big eye, especially now. This season was a special season as well, so I had a good eye on it as well. So yeah, I'm definitely following Celtic.
Brilliant. I mean, see, when I look back at your arrival at Celtic, as I was saying to you earlier, I think I've seen most of your games, but when you look at the amount of silverware you got for the games you've played, as you say, it was a very sweet period in the Celtic history. But when you look back to your early career playing for Grasshoppers, making a name for yourself in Swiss football, and you compare it now to the kind of standards of Swiss football, in mind, obviously, with us having Albion Ayeti, where is Swiss football at the moment, Ramon? Is it still a high standard?
I think Swiss football is very high standard. I think it's progressed since, I think our kind of period from my time in the 90s, I think that's what Swiss football really had a huge impact with the overall Swiss football as such, because not just myself, there was Stefan Honchon in Liverpool, there was Stefan Champissa in Dortmund, really top players at the time, you know, and we had a fantastic national team as well, the Euro 96, and so on. I think there was the start of a huge successful period for the Swiss national team as well, as you can potentially see now, the last 10, 15 years. The younger generation really improved massively, and the Swiss football has I would say a very good high standard in terms of quality players. I'm not saying in terms of the league itself, because that's a completely different conversation, but the players that produce from Switzerland has definitely the last 15, 20 years improved, and it's a high standard.
You mentioned the name Chapuisat. Celtic fans will remember him well from his time in Dortmund as well. What a striker he was. But obviously we have Albion Ayeti, and just over the last couple of weeks he's come back into the side, Ramon, and we look at a player like him. Obviously you moved about yourself. You went from Switzerland to Italy before coming to Britain. Ayeti's come in. He's a fairly young man. He's obviously moved from Switzerland to England and then up to Scotland. How difficult is it during these times for a player to come to a club like Celtic, where perhaps his family are back home, he can't integrate with his teammates? It must be really difficult.
Well, I think it is very, very difficult. But, you know, when you go in the journey as a football player, as a professional player, you have to calculate the thing that's going to happen in your career. You know, you're a professional player. It's going to happen if you want to be an international player on top of that, not just playing in Switzerland. You will potentially most likely see that you're not going to see your family for a while. It was happening to me as well. And when I went to Italy or even to Britain, to the UK, at the beginning, it was very difficult as well. You know, it was a big change, you know, coming from Europe into the UK, especially London, different atmosphere, the language, all of that had a huge impact. But if you didn't have somebody next to you, it makes it even more difficult. But it's also a good time for somebody to mature and be stronger mentally in terms of how to approach yourself. You get to learn about yourself as well, you know. And I think it's also a good time. It's of course very difficult, but I think the players today, to my generation, not biased too much, but I think they're softer compared to my generation, to be honest with you, because I think they've been giving much more possibility than what we had at the time. We really needed to work our socks off to really even get to somewhere, especially from Switzerland. For us to play abroad and play for Tottenham or even Celtic, leave alone, you know, it was a dream, but very difficult to get. But we made pretty much the foundation for all these players that come now through, like himself, you know. Everybody looks into the Swiss football, you know. So I think the generation we are in now, it's softer for certain, but in the same time, they also have a much better kind of platform to play football.
I mean, I've mentioned Ajeti, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. He's back in the Celtic side. I look at him as a player we've spent obviously a lot of money on. Ramon, do you think he is someone who will progress and we will see the true Albion Ajeti maybe next season or in the coming seasons?
It's a good question to say. It's a very big conflict. When you start to pay quite the big dollars like that, the expectation is very, very high. That's just what it is, you know. From club's point of view, to spend that kind of level of money, where, from my information, he went to West Ham, didn't play as much there either, to be honest with you. It's a big price to be asked to not be performed yet, you know. If he was just on loan and he improves and actually proves himself to Celtic, yes, then I'm not worried to pay the £5 million, you know, for him, or whatever the price it was at that time. But now he will definitely has to prove himself now for the club, because I think he didn't have that impact he's supposed to give to Celtic. That's the hope I think Lennon want to have. You know, they have a firepower in the front, not just on the national kind of games, but also the international one, the European games. You know, I don't think that really went well because I think it's a player where potentially the confidence were very low. But at the same time, I'm not sure the fitness was on a standard high. He should be, you know. So that's all that together. It takes 6 months to 1 year to get into quality if you're supposed to give from him, you know. But we're not seeing anything of that. I'm not sure. I hope for him, because it's a fantastic club. Because I experienced very good experience there, you know. But he needs to know that if he plays for Celtic, he plays for a big club. And to improve himself as well.
Yeah, and you know, similarly to yourself, he's gone to London first, and you know, I look at your Twitter page, for example, Ramon. It's obvious that you've got a real fondness still for Tottenham Hotspur. You look back fondly on your time there, but it's interesting for me that the team that you were part of, the League Cup winning side, 1999, you're up against Martin O'Neill's Leicester at that time, and in the midfield is Neil Lennon, of course. I mean, how fond are you still of the Spurs yourself? You're still down in London, I guess.
Listen, it's very clear. As a player, when you play for nearly 4.5 years, like Tottenham Hotspurs, and it's a big club, it's a London club. It was pretty much my first club in Britain at the time. I had, you know, a great experience with them as well. But at the same time, when you're winning a League Cup like that, which even today is historical, because not many cups they won since then, you know, and I was part of the 99 that you mentioned too. Of course, I follow them, and I still have a lot communication with the club themselves. But at the same time, just talking about Celtic, for me, Celtic, even that 6 months I have that is pretty much the same impact I had like 4.5 years at Spurs. So I look at both clubs for me as my favourite clubs to not just to watch, to look into it, but also it is something I'm loyal to, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Martin O'Neill came to Celtic, Ramon, we seen a huge turnover, if you like, of players coming in, players going out. He was transforming the club, and part of that transformation was in the shape of two guys who played in that cup final, Neil Lennon and then yourself, and you made your debuts one game away from each other. How did you hear of that first interest from Martin O'Neill? What was your first impressions of Martin?
Well, the first call came just before Christmas time, I think, at that time. There was an interest from Celtic Glasgow. Of course, my first instinct is, wow, it's a big club. There's no doubt. I don't even have to think twice. And of course, it's between the clubs, so we have to agree what I want to agree. It was my mind was already pretty much saying, yes, if Celtic and Martin only wants me, I'm up there. Absolutely no even think about it, you know. And it took about a month or so to negotiate between the clubs if I can be released, you know. And when I got the call from Martin O'Neill to meet me on top of that down at London, when it really was getting concrete about my contract, it was a maximum 30 minutes meeting, and we knew instantly that was my club straight away. I don't even have to think about it twice, you know. And I told the agent, get everything sorted out, whatever is needed to be done, because I like to play for this club, you know. And it was very quick. The rest was, fabulous start. I can't even talking now today, I get goosebumps about it. You know, just that first game against Aberdeen, you know. just the support, though, is just it's unbelievable. It's something you can't really repeat. I'm very lucky that actually I had this experience as a player, because I always say to all my ex-international players or all the players I know around Europe, and they always ask the question, where do you most enjoy it? My first club in mind is always Celtic, and it's because I think it's the club himself just gives you such a warm, enthusiastic welcome, where it's just like you just go into it very quick into, and that's really had an impact on me as well. And scoring straight away 2 goals in the first game, I think you can't have a better start, to be honest with you.
Oh, great memories. I mean, every home game was a 60,000 sellout. We were beating teams like Aberdeen 6-0 in your debut, like you say. And you were surrounded with players such as, Henrik Larsson, Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon. I mean, when you look back to the likes of Larsson, who obviously had a massive impression on the club, what did he do differently, Ramon? I know that, he's got the technique and he's got natural ability, but how did he apply himself differently, or was it all down to natural ability?
Well, I think it's a mixture of both, to be honest with you. I think Henrik Larsson, what he has is he was a typical kind of striker. He had the instinct. He knew exactly when to run and when to run behind the defender, For us as centre-half, Johan Mjalby in the back, we were delighted to have somebody in front of us, because every time we put the ball front, we actually could relax a little bit, and have a breather and don't have to defend all the time, because we know we got Henrik Larsson in the front. It's doing something, But I think with the combination with Chris Sutton together really helped a lot, I think, for Henrik Larsson's game as well, because I think Chris Sutton was fantastic holding the ball in front. He was a big fella as well. And I think the combination between these two was fantastic. Even for us, as a centre-half, we had an option. We always knew whatever happens, you always have a good look on Chris Sutton, have a chip into him, and that Henrik Larsson just go around him, and we scored many goals like that, I think the natural instinct of Henrik Larsson was really, really that kind of special about him, or even defending him in the training ground, it was difficult, because I remember the first week I nearly injured him. I thought, oh God, my career is already finished at Celtic, But it was difficult, because in one stage you thought you mark him, you have him really under control, and suddenly he disappears silently. It was not the kind of the scream, very quiet, silent, but he had the instinct. He was always there where it's danger in the 80-yard box, and that's just fantastic talent. And he was great for Celtic. I think he's without a doubt a major legend there. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and we look back on that period as well as a time when Martin O'Neill really galvanised the club. Ramon, he brought us the success that we so craved after a really poor season the year before. And I've heard from some of your ex-teammates that he wasn't really a training ground manager. Would you say that was the case? It was more John Robertson and Steve Walford?
Oh, absolutely. I can join my ex-players as well. For me, I was very surprised, because on the continent you got this very hands-on coach on the ground doing the training sessions and everything, and Steve Wolf and Robson, fantastic 2 assistant coach. I think that makes also a big difference. It depends who you have as your right-hand man or 2 assistants. Martin O'Neill really gave full confidence and responsibility to these 2, and these 2 really gave also the kind of the attitude, the kind of the team spirit, where you need it. And you can see Stephen Wolf and everything, we always joked and everything else, but the training session was tough and also entertaining. But Martin O'Neill, in this case, he was, by Thursday, Friday, he was maybe coming into the training ground, watched us playing the 5-a-sides, whatever we played at the time, and that's it. And for me, it was a very big surprise. I had no clue on Saturday, is he coming in now on Saturday or not, or is he going to be in the stand, So Martin O'Neill was really kind of not hands-on in terms of training, but when he was on the match day, he was on there. That you could feel Martin O'Neill was there. He was his passion. When things really didn't go well, you can really hear him properly. Then you can see Martin O'Neill was hands-on it. That's for sure.
I've heard you speaking before, Ramon, about the expectation at a club like Celtic is to win every single game. And even, when you look down south, some of the big clubs down there don't have the same level of expectation. And it turns into a crisis if you don't win every game. I mean, actually, as a Celtic player, you only lost 2 games, and that was after the league was won. I noticed that earlier on today, so you were quite good at winning games at Celtic. Is that something that anybody actually speaks to you about, or do you just know, because of the standards around you, that defeat isn't an option?
Well, I think more today than before when I was coming to Celtic, because I think Celtic really done a fantastic, in the last 10, 15 years, it was fantastic successful, Obviously, the 10 in a row scenario we were talking about it. It's a fantastic achievement. From point of view. So now today, the expectation is definitely higher, because obviously, when you build up a track record, winning trophies with a big club like Celtic, the expectation from the fans and from everybody around wants to win every weekend. And also on top of that, now they want to play well, because before they were happy just to win the game. Now they want to win the game and also play unbelievable. So the expectations really, really got higher today than when we potentially played. For us, we just broke that time, that treble winning kind of year. Rangers was leading for 8-9 years at the time, and we came in and just won. That's it. We had a treble winning year, fantastic games. We played well. Everybody was happy. The supporter was over the moon. We were also very happy as well. But now, 10 years, 15 years later, or 20 years later, the game has changed. Celtic has changed as well. It's more successful, or was also more successful in the past. So the expectation for any player who comes to the Celtic is to win and to win trophies. There's no doubt. He has to know that.
Mm-hmm. When you looked around your dressing room and the training pitch, and one of your teammates was Neil Lennon, who has gone on to manage the club on 2 different occasions. Did you see some attributes within Neil Lennon, Ramon, where you thought, he's management material?
Yes, I think in the dressing room, what I see from that dressing room, I was at the time, you've got Chris Sutton, you got Lennon, Paul Lambert, who was also a manager, Jan Mjalbino. We were characters. We were kind of really not little boys. We were characters. We were pretty much, sometimes we were aggressive against each other when something's not happening on the pitch, and dressing room something at half time. I'm not going to say it now here because I always have to start to swear. Because there was 15 minutes really flying shoes around and something like that. Especially Neil Lennon, or us. We were characters. We wanted to win. We were winning for him. Neil Lennon, I could see already that time, he was really going that direction. He was already guiding kind of some of the players, especially some of the young players who were coming through with us as well. And for us as foreign players, we were there as well. We kind of listen to him as well. So you could see at that time, if I look back now, he was going that direction, And I'm actually, not surprised now that he was also very successful, because I think he's done a fantastic job for Celtic, to be honest, So, but, it's different games now, different year. But I think if you look back what he's done in the past as a player and as a manager for Celtic, I think he's done a very good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, again, I look back at the team that you were in, Ramon. What was it like off the park? I mean, was there a good camaraderie? Were you able to socialise away from the training pitch as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to know Glasgow for certain. That's one thing, I think it's. I had some fun memories. It's absolutely, Chris Sutton just giving always jokes every day on the training. After the training, we go for lunches or something like that. We really it was a camaraderie always together. And I think that was also one of the crucial part of success, because it is key to success that you are not just a team member, but also you are together. You leave every day, you train every day. You're like a family in a way, And
Mm-hmm.
once you got that spirit into it on the Saturday, when something might not go well, because happened, that's football for you, That sometimes maybe the first 30 minutes, maybe 1 or 2 players right next to you it's not their day. You can encourage them, because you start to know them why potentially they have that issue today, and that makes also a very successful team. And I think that's kind of the success we had at that treble winning year, because we had some absolutely fantastic characters, really made the difference in the dressing room,
Definitely, and part of the success really was the domination over Rangers. I mean, a lot of players come to Celtic or come to Scottish football, and that's the big one you want to play. And you never lost against Rangers, Ramon. That's a record that anyone would be proud of.
I'm very proud of that. I'm very, very proud of that, you know. So, yeah.
Absolutely. How do you prepare for a game like that? Again, you know, tension is high. Obviously, you're playing to the packed crowds. It's a massive rivalry. How do you prepare for that game?
Listen, if I compare now to the London derby, like, you know, Spurs, Arsenal, you know, those are big derbies, you know. And I got used to that 4.5 years playing that, you know, year in, year out. But when I came to Celtic, and it was my first kind of firm game, you know, everybody was talking about it and how intense a week before, you know, the fans already kind of full of emotion or even come down to the training ground. So until you don't have it, you don't experience yourself personally, you can't even imagine how intense actually that week before the game is. It was unbelievable. I couldn't even describe it. I remember still in the old training ground just off the Celtic Park there. We used to walk that, you know. It was about 1,000, 1,500 fans that were already there, just on watching us. First of all, that, and then just walking back, where everybody was there from Ireland, from all around the world. People were coming to watch us, and for me, that was absolutely unbelievable. And and every day was more intense. You can hear that even Glasgow as a city was really on fire. You can see the divide between the Celtic and the Rangers supporters, you know. And then I actually loved it. It's really the intensity of before the game, and then on the game day, it was like I was like a little boy, shy nearly, because I never experienced such passion, especially at the park, before coming out the tunnel and coming out of into the stadium as a player. It was unbelievable. The intensity, the passion of the fans is something you can't forget. It's, for me as a player, definitely without a doubt, one of the most best experience I ever had is these Old Firm games. You can't describe it. You have to experience. And I think as a player, but also for people who never watched as a supporter or as any Old Firm, you has to watch that, because that's just a different ball game.
Different ballgame. You liked a goal when you were up at Celtic Park, and you actually scored against Rangers and it was disallowed. How disappointing on your second game against Rangers was that?
Very much. Very much. I was really, really hoping to score against them, because at that time, Rangers, to be honest, was also a very good team, you know, at the time. And Amoroso, you know, but that's a fantastic team there. The De Boers, all of these guys, you know, really top players they had, you know. And scoring against them, it will be going down to history again for me. You know, it was a shame. I was very disappointed, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, I got a track record not losing against Rangers. For me, that's also a very, very, very good one. I'm very happy and proud about it.
Absolutely. You mentioned Barrowfield. You know, that's a historic part of the Celtic's story as well, as is the kit man. When you were there, John Clark, I noticed that you tweeted out about John Clark the other day there. How important are guys like him in the great scheme of things at Celtic Park?
This is what I was trying to say, you know. I think when I came to Celtic, I have never trained with the players. I remember Aberdeen game. I arrived on Friday afternoon or something like that to Glasgow. On Saturday there was a game. I never thought in 100 million years I'm going to play my first game. I never trained with the players. I don't even know all of the names to start with. Of course, some of them 3 or 4 guys, that's it. I say hello in the dinner the night. I thought next day, that's it. I'm going to sit on the bench, watch them, analyse them, etc. And then Martin O'Neill, 2 hours before the game, mentions my name. I was absolutely, first of all, I was afraid because I had no clue with who I'm dealing with, you know, and straight going the wall cold water. But the minute I was announced as a team member, all the other players immediately make you welcome straight away. And that making welcome made me less nervous to start with. I felt immediately I was there already for 6 months or more. And I think after the game, I showed it as well. I had already the confidence to play with them like I play all the time. And then, of course, scoring 2 goals in my first game. it was fantastic. It's a memory day. It's definitely something to memorize. Again, with legends like John, they're very important. There's these guys, not just from the experience point of view, the humbleness of these people, these players. They're top legends for Celtic. They've done a fantastic job for them. They were humble. They were part of a team member. They were like a player to us. And he was a great gentleman. On top of that, I can't say anything wrong about that. I will miss if they're not will be there at Celtic, to be honest with you, because these are legends. These are part of Celtic family. And it's for every single player who comes to Celtic, they have to embrace these players. And I think it should be more players that be part of Celtic, because that's what makes Celtic more special, make it family. And the players and new players coming into it has to feel like straight away you're coming into a very, very strong family with passion and emotions, And I think John and all these guys, they really show that to us. And that's what I experienced personally at the time, And I think it's a very important element for Celtic to have people like that.
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. An absolute legend. Now, we won the League Cup by beating Kilmarnock 3-0, a Larsson hat-trick, of course. We wrapped up the league by beating St Mirren 1-0, and then the Scottish Cup final against Hibs 3-0. 26 appearances, Ramon, 3 trophies in 26 appearances, an outstanding record. But the time comes, obviously, after your loan deal. Were you looking ahead to the following season, thinking you would like a crack at the Champions League, perhaps?
Oh, absolutely. How can, as a player at that time, Champions League, even today, I think it's one of the best the place to be as a player. First of all, I thought I give quite a lot for Celtic at the time. I played well for them. We won trophies. That's also very important. So in my mind, there was not even a doubt to stay at Celtic. Wasn't even a question. It was like I was thinking I'm going to be part of that at least 1 year or 2 years or more. To be honest, in my time, I even remember the time. Listen, sign me for life. I stay here because I feel comfortable. I loved Glasgow at the time. I loved the whole environment. I loved Celtic at the time, and I thought I'm going to stay here, but never really pretty much came to even to a conversation to potentially stay. And that was my biggest disappointment, to be honest with you. Because I at that time thought, what have I done wrong to not deserve have another year or 2 years, Yeah, they were saying I went down to Watford because of the money. No, it wasn't because of money. It was, Watford was not in the Premier League. It was in the second division at the time, I think Celtic was way much more attractive proposition because we can play the Champions League and so on, So I was expecting even at least sit down and have a conversation, stay for 1 year, with the option of another one, At that time, I was also 30, 31. For me, it was always important, security, how long I'm going to stay, 3 to 4 years. Of course, I wanted to have 3 to 4 years so I can retire potentially at Celtic, But none of this conversation happens. And that was very, very disappointed. And then it came to the conclusion that I don't think it's going to happen here at Celtic. I was already June and July, and the season, pre-season started within days. And I said, I need to start the pre-season somewhere else. If Celtic doesn't want me because they have first option, because I'm there, I played with them, and I got a call, an offer, then I need to look forward. And that's what you have to do. Unfortunately, I needed to do that at the time. And Watford came in at the time with Gianluca Vialli and really even waited a week later to sign because I really was hoping Celtic wanted to sign me at the club. But never happened. So for me, it was a very big disappointment.
Oh, definitely. When you look at your records, it's unarguable that you were a big success at the club. 26 games, you only conceded 14 goals during that period. It was a domestic clean sweep, and you played alongside people like Valharan and Mjällby. And a big thing this season, Ramon, has been the weaknesses within the central defensive areas at Celtic. How key do you think that's been to our kind of capitulation this year?
Very much, very much. I've been following it from the start, and I think that department was, without a doubt, the weakest in terms of defending side point of view, but also in terms of characters within that defending department. You know, there's no, you couldn't see a leader coming in out of over the defense. You know, because sometimes that's where you need to have someone. We at that time, as you just mentioned, we had some unbelievable defender, Johan Mjölby, Van Gaal, and myself. We had three at the back. We were like, we understood each other. We were talking to each other. We were leaders independently to each other as such. You know, we don't see that today at Celtic, and that was definitely without doubt one of the biggest. The other part is that the weaknesses was that kind of connection between the centre half and the centre midfield players. These two parts was also not really communicating very well during the whole season, and that department has weakened the Celtic. That's why they also conceded quite a lot of goals because of that. Because if that centre part it's not really organized well, and you don't have a very leading position there, then it's very difficult all the other positions to actually melt into that. These two positions, from my point of view, I think was very weak during the whole season. The centre half, or the middle, and the centre midfield players, these parts were very, very weak.
There's big changes afoot. We've seen some of them being announced recently with regards to Peter Lowell retiring at the end of the season. There's talk about a director of football and perhaps even a change in manager. Now, you know Neil Lennon pretty well, having been his teammate for 6 months. Do you think it's time for a change, Ramon? You came after a really disappointing season and the change was massive with Martin O'Neill. Do you think that's the kind of transformation Celtic need this time round?
Listen, I think, first of all, I have to congratulate the CEO because I think he's done a tremendous job for the club, for Celtic. Let's be facts, talk about facts. I think since he came into Celtic as a CEO, Celtic was on a winning formula. He's done a tremendous job for them. So I have to congratulate to him, first of all, because he's done a very, very, very good job. Of course, this season, I would say, was a difficult one because a lot of things really came together. And obviously, the pandemics with the COVID-19 didn't help either. But at the same time, I think I have to congratulate. He's done a fantastic job for Celtic. And I think I wish him all the best for the future and after Celtic in the summer. When personalities like him leaving, it's clear there's always going to be a change within the club, of course, because whatever CEO is coming into it, he wants to have it his way, in a way, how to run the club. Of course, he will definitely talk to the ex-CEO once the transition period goes in place, but it's now where you're actually talking what you're going to do in the summer, of course, You're not preparing this in June and July, you're preparing already now. Well, actually, before Christmas already, what you're going to do in the summer. Buy players in terms of the management team and everything else. So from Neil Lennon's point of view, again, he's done a tremendous job for the club as a player and also as a manager. There's not many out there who's done for the same club, played for them and also managed also successfully, He had definitely not the best season. We can't go around that. That's for certain. We don't have to talk around it. He knows that himself. He knows that the season is not really going the direction we want to have it. It's up to him as well. Where is he? He has to look himself in the mirror and say, "Is this for me it in the summer, or does he want the Celtic wants to tell him that he has to leave?" Then there's a question about personalities. If you, as a manager, feel that you still have something to give for Celtic, then you have to stay. And you have to prove it, of course. That's the only way to do it. But if you feel this is not my way anymore, this is not the direction that goes anymore, maybe the players doesn't act on me anymore. Mm-hmm. As a manager, you have to be honest about yourself and say, I think that's it. I've done a fantastic job already. He can go out of that club, your heads up. There's no doubt. Whatever the season now, good or bad, I think from what he's done until now, he's done a very good job. So he could actually walk out with a very good track record with Celtic, But again, people only look at what you've done last month, unfortunately, in football. They don't look what you've done 10, 15 years ago. That's the thicker side of football, unfortunately, But for him, it's a question he himself has to answer to himself. Is he prepared to go further? Is he ready to do something like that to stay at Celtic? And then there's the question of the management team. Do they want to stay with Neil Lennon and go another season and say, okay, we can give him another chance because he's done a good job already until before this season, let's call it, okay? Or they say, we have to change it now and give him a chance to end the season, and after that, we're looking for a new manager. I think the new management team has to look very, very careful with that. Now, we have to look into the same thing. We've got also the economic crisis coming into it. The club has to look into that side as well. Do they're going to spend now heavily in the summer for new players because a new manager comes in? Because the new manager comes in, he wants to have his players as well. So it's a conflict there in terms of how much you can spend, how well you're going to manage for next season, but it has to be successful in the same time and competitive. And that's a very tricky way to look into it, you know. So maybe Milan is the cheapest version to stay, potentially, because he has already the players he wanted. He might continue with his play and add some other players in the summer. Or maybe he's completely say, well, we go to a completely younger manager, even potentially cheaper, give him the chance to do him well at Celtic, a big club like that, and then and build up a team for the next 2 to 3 years. Because whatever manager new comes into it, it's not just a 1 year game. It's a minimum 2 to 3 years, a build up a scenario as a team, as players, everything around him. You know, so it's a question of the management team, how far they want to go in the summer. Do they want to invest or they don't want to invest?
Absolutely.
I don't know if they can invest. That's the other question. It's not the only club in the world who has potentially financial restriction in terms, because obviously fans can't come in. There's less revenue stream coming into it. So for that point of view, it's a big, the whole goes into it. So you need to be very careful how you manage that club. And I think until now, Celtic was managing it very well on that side, extremely well. So we need as fans and as followers and supporters, we need to look at that side as well. We want to have Celtic still at the top, but we also don't want Celtic like what happened with Rangers going bankrupt. You know, so we need to make sure that it's not going to happen that side. So, you know, it's a difficult task to do it, but it's definitely doable because I think everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's trying to make sure the cheapest version to go into it, not just Celtic, any club in the world at this point now. So that's a good thing, is because everybody wants to do cheapest version the best way. Maybe now is a good time to have the best manager with not major salaries, with the best players. I mean, also not major salaries at this time of the period. That's a good way to do it, you know? Yeah,
we're moving in out of difficult times, but some troubled waters ahead, I would feel. Ramon, what about yourself? What does the future hold for Ramon Vega?
Well, at this point, the future holds... I'm like yourself. We are pretty much. I'm in football involved. That's a fact. I'm not just advising football federations around the globe, or football clubs as well, especially on the sporting director side point of view and the CEO level. So, yeah, it's definitely one of the direction I would definitely look into it. I already have some options to potentially go involved in a football club as either as football director or as a CEO, because obviously I'm merging the two, financial knowledge and the football together from my past, the last 20 years. So yeah, this is something I'm actually at the moment I'm in discussion with various clubs and federations as well at the same time. I'm on the advisory board of some of them already. So yeah, listen, as I say, I'm always here to listen if something is interesting where I can see I can add value, first of all. So I have to see I can add value towards that club and I can build something, you know. So once I see these two opponents, then I definitely do take it seriously and go for it, you know.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Ramon, speaking to a Celtic treble winner, as you certainly were, 20 years ago now. And it's great to hear your tales and your memories of Celtic Football Club. All that's left for me to say is, Ramon Vega, thank you very much for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you very much, and good luck